more ideas in terms of God and the way things are. I believe, I'm going to continue to believe, but I do have a lot of confusion. Like, the Bible is the best book to justify just about everything. I don't know if there's anything that has been or will be that you will not find a reference to in the Bible. And that sometimes is confusing. And then the part that's can be even more confusing is, after all of the things that thou shalt not do, then there's this part, and I'll have to get the exact scripture, that says, but if you ask forgiveness before you take your last breath, then you can still get into heaven. So that is all very confusing to me, but it is the best example of how one believes what they believe, and you cannot change that. There are things that are history, literally, that cannot be changed. And there are people who will deny them, like the Holocaust. And then there was the Connecticut killing of the kids. There are people that said those are conspiracies, that they never happened. Now, my thinking with that is that they were so horrible, to give the person credit, they just can't believe that something like that could happen. So therefore, in their mind, they've convinced themselves that it did not happen, because their psyche just cannot take that level of evil. So that's one of the things that led me to see we will all believe what we would believe, because we believe it. And it doesn't matter whether it's truth or not. Oftentimes, it doesn't matter if it's history or not. We will believe it, we will justify it, and we will find reasons to justify it. And just the little bits of conversations I've had with people who I disagree with about immigration, or the immigrants, the children, etc. I mean, they have more reasons than I have, and then anything. And even I didn't get very far into those discussions with about the Obamas, but I remember pointing out certain things. And I says, well, are you better off? And then I gave the numbers about the number of cars sold, the number that was not sold. None of that mattered. They just still said they were an awful president and they didn't like him, blah, blah, blah. So it's just whatever it is within us. And I don't know what that is. And I don't want to label it. There are those who label it as jealousy. There's those who label it, for Black people, they say, well, you don't like yourself, so therefore you don't like, other Black people. And when other Black people do things that are greater, then you don't like them. Or there's those that use the hair thing, like, well, look at Black people. They always want their hair straight, blah, blah, blah. Well, you know what? I had an afro. I've got a picture of it somewhere. And let me tell you, it was painful. It was just painful, because that's the kind of hair I have, and my head is really tender, and it really hurt trying to comb that out every day. It just was very painful. So, plus, it was a lot of work. Any kind of hair, woman's hair, is a lot of work. But that was really a lot of work. It wasn't that I didn't like it, that I don't like it. It just was easier not to have to work with it every single day. And as I said, women, there's so many things that we're required to do. And one of when I kind of left the corporate world and went into constructions, it was like, how much time I spend with my hair and pantyhose and all that stuff just to be ready to work. And I was just kind of tired of that. So I was tired of being basically cute and broke. So I decided to change careers. And there's another whole long story how that all ended. But the way that we believe is somehow it comes from who we are inside, our environment, how we were trained by our parents, what we like and don't like about ourselves, our fear, our courage, many times, so many things. And honestly, I'm going to say this because I believe this, and no one's going to make me not believe it. So many ugly things come out of fear, of people having fear that someone else, if someone else has it, then you're not going to have it, or someone else is in the same level of status as you are, then that makes your status less because you're no longer the only one. Or like the thing with the immigrant kids, and they're saying, well, they're going to come here and they're going to teach them all the languages and they're going to get ahead of our kids. And that meant, not just black kids, but the Appalachian kids or other kids, or even middle class kids whose parents are just too busy to make sure that they can put them in places where they can learn to speak 3 or 4 languages, etc. And that's another sidebar, because that could be taught in our schools. But there's what I believe as a control even in the school. There's nothing harder, there's no harder work than working with a smart child. I had a couple, and I can tell you it's a lot of work. That's not going to just say, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, go sit down. That's it's a lot of work. A smart child, even a smart baby, they're so active. They work the heck out of you. So the schools could be a lot better. There's no reason that there are not, but keep them dumb. It's old saying, like with the women, keep pregnant and bare feet. It's a way of suppression, and it's a big job, but it could be changed. It could be changed. Now, who wants to take that on? It's a great project. I had actually written to Mr. at Amazon and asked him to take that on. Well, he didn't respond. So to me, that meant, that was not something he wanted to take on. He went on with his charities and dealing with small portions, which is something you can control. I mean, trying to take on the entire education system of the United States is a hell of a job. But it's like somebody said to me, how do you eat an elephant? A bite at a time. We have great writers. They can write, they can rewrite. We don't use textbook anymore, but I will say educational material. So it reflects where we are now, but it also teaches compassion and love and caring for your fellow man and not bullying and all those kinds of things. That can be written into the system, into a story from kindergarten on. It can be done, and we have writers that need to work and would be glad to do that. But that, again, you're bulking somewhat, and I wanted to say of an old political system, but not really, because the parents are training their kids and their kids and their kids, so it's never old, it's never outdated, like those laws and rules from Rockefeller was put into your book, and that was passed on. 100 years later, we're still abiding by, when you want to put a person out of business, this is what you do. Those are that continues on. So it doesn't die off. It maybe gradually dies off a little bit, and I see that with all of the interracial marriages, and maybe in 1,000 years we'll all be a shade of brown. But even then, it will be percentages like it was back in the day. I think, if you had so many ounces of black blood, you were 5th. And then if you were some other nationality, you could even be an 8th. I mean, all kinds of things. There's all kinds of ways that people devise to appear superior to one another, because for some reason they have to feel that way, and it has to be another person. You're not valued. One does not always value themselves on their own heart and accomplishments, or however, that's not even a good word there. But you have to have a way that you feel good about yourself, whoever you are, wherever you are, doing what you're doing and what your purpose is. Your purpose may not be what another person's is, but you definitely made an impact. You made an impact with your children. You made an impact with your family, with your community, blah, 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 blah. All of those things are part of the cogs in the wheel that keeps things moving. But the idea of it has to be based upon another person. You're valuing your value upon another person and what that person has accomplished and you have not accomplished. And many times you don't want to accomplish it. And that's the thing that I think we have to realize. You don't want to accomplish it, but you can admire someone else who does. You can realize some things you're just a coward about. but you can respect someone else that does. Firemen that run into burning buildings. For God's sakes, the building is already on fire and you're going in. The object is, for most people, you tell everybody, get out of the house if it's on fire. Well, you got the firemen that are going in. That's bravery. There's many, 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 many things in life that are just bravery. And somebody does it. So you respect them for that. And one of the things, not to get into the me thing, with my company, it was run very well because, first of all, the entire administrative staff was women. And women are just the ones, for the most part, are just better administrators. And I realized that the people I hired had many qualities that I did not have and was better than me. And I like that. And I complimented them on that. And I gave them the opportunity to make a decision. Make a decision. Sometimes it'll be right, sometimes it'll be wrong. But guess what? I'm going to make some that are sometimes right and sometimes wrong also. So make them. And when they made them, they were so happy and so pleased that, wow, I could do this. And they felt better and they made more and more. And it made my life much easier and it made them much happier. So working together, we were able to really do more in 7 years than it could take up somebody to do in 20. And that was what was frightening to the immediate powers to be, who were superior to me, for lack of a better word, in terms of the industry. It became frightening. And there's things that were funny. Like one time, one of the supervisors invited me over and wanted to know what I did to motivate my drivers. And here I am, I'm all happy and excited. Oh, this 100-year-old company with all this money, and they want to know what I do. Oh, I felt just on top of the world. Well, of course, I told him. Well, next thing I know, he has implemented this to inspire his drivers, and he's taken the work away from my drivers. Okay, lesson learned. But it's just, and I didn't know. It never occurred to me. But in the bottom line, he could have found out anyway, because any of my drivers would have told him, because they wouldn't have thought anything about it, which, they would not have thought that they were giving them the axe to chop the feet off with. You just don't always think that way. So at any rate, end of that subject, and I will start up again later.